Welcome back to another episode of the Hard Podcast. My name is Jagraj Lalli, and joining me on the show today is someone I can't even consider a friend. We've formed a relationship that's much stronger than that now. I really consider him my brother, my broadcast partner in many aspects, but just a great guy to be around in Mr. Ian Wilson. Ian, how's it going? Thanks so much for joining me.
You flatter me, brother. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and see your kind of evolution and journey so far. So thank you so much for bringing me on the show. And yeah, looking forward to chatting about all things broadcasting. And yeah, very much doing well. It's been a long summer of kind of R&R and figuring out what the next steps are. And so very excited for the future of what's coming up and what's already been done so far.
And you take me back to, just the summer overall. I know there's really no off season when you're doing a profession such as this. There's so much going on around the summer as well. But when you think back to, the off season away from hockey, what was that time like? How did you spend your time?
This summer, actually, I mean, when one of Canada's national sports is off, the other is on. I mean, lacrosse goes all year round when you look at like the National Lacrosse League and the advent of the Arena Lacrosse League and them including the West now these past few years. But for me, I spent the summer working with the Coquitlam Adirondacks in the BC Junior A Lacrosse League with Shahab Oshaderi and his crew of Trick Shot. They started working with them this summer, and so I was doing play-by-play alongside Tino Farah for most of the summer. Jake Elliott was in there as a part of that because Gord Kask and his crew over at the Adirondacks were hosting the Minto Cup, which is, for people that aren't familiar with that, is essentially the Memorial Cup equivalent of hockey, but in lacrosse. So it's the champions of BC, Alberta, and Ontario coming together to do a best on best tournament. And so this year the Adirondacks hosted. So after a summer of play by play with the Adirondacks, it was getting to work on the Minto Cup. So they brought together a team of some incredible folks from across Canada, Teddy Jenner, Mackie Jenner, John Donville, Jake Elliott, Tino Farah, myself, and we got to work with the crew of Trick Shot and put on quite the show at the Minto. We had people tuning in from around the world, so it's in this line of work, you always get to experience some new things, and when new doors open up, kind of seizing those opportunities and seeing where they take you has just been unreal for me so far. So having the chance to work the creators game like we did over the summer was truly a blessing.
Was this your first season working with the Coquitlam Adirondacks?
This one, it was. It wasn't my first season in lacrosse per se. Like, I've had the pleasure and honor of doing the Arena Lacrosse League out of the Langley Event Center for about 3 seasons now since they started out here, playing out of the field house. And so getting to really see my first lacrosse. I mean, when I started calling lacrosse, that was it. Like, that was the first lacrosse I had seen outside of learning a bit about it and playing it just in gym class in high school. So to get to really understand the game and fall in love with that game. And shout outs to Jake Foster, a guy who played in the National Lacrosse League, was a graduate of South Alberta Institute of Technology. He was playing with the Shooting Eagles, and he would come up and broadcast with me as my color guy in the games that he wasn't playing in. And the amount that I learned from him was second to none. And then just working with Tino Farah this season and then John Donville during the Minto Cup, these guys are just a wealth of knowledge. So to kind of add that into the portfolio has been huge.
I know there's so many emotions that probably come to mind surrounding that week working the Minto Cup, but if you can put it into words what it meant to you to be a part of something so special, how would you describe it as?
Monumental. Like, I obviously working with the Coquitlam Express and seeing people pack into the Poirier, this was nothing like I've ever seen before. That might have been the craziest, most authentic sports environment I've ever had the pleasure to be a part of was the Minto Cup. The Adirondacks did an incredible job hosting it. There's people from all across the nation that gathered in Coquitlam to witness the Creators game at one of its highest levels, and there were thousands of people packed into the Poirier. It was the epitome of standing room only. And to feel the energy in the building whenever a goal was scored, and then to channel that into your call and just also allow the sound and the energy in the building to be heard through the ambient mics before you say anything else. It was just unreal. even in the games I didn't call myself, whether I was doing on the floor interviews after a game or just helping out behind the scenes or sitting on the panel or whatever it happened to be. It was as you've like to say, cinema, Jagraj.
That's a word I've used all too much. Maybe a bit overused by this point, but if nothing else really comes to mind for me. And I mean, Ian, you made mention as to how fans from all across the country gathered over. I remember the day of the final, game two, I believe it was, you and I were standing behind a whole section of Orangeville fans, fans that had made their way out to support their team.
Yeah, to see the contingency come from Orangeville, Ontario, and the fans, the parents, the families was just unreal. And I mean, there was even a little bit of controversy there because on after day one, the air horns that were in the building were pretty much taken away from everybody because in theory you're not supposed to have the traditional air horns. So the Orangeville fans basically went to Home Depot and built their own these like we were standing right behind them these wooden clappers out of 2x4s and doorknobs for handles. And it just goes to show the passion that they have for being able to cheer on their team. And of course, we can't forget the traditional First Nations drums that were ringing through that building because a bunch of the Orangeville fans had brought them with them across the country. And just to hear them beat with pride whenever their team was on offense and defense, it just was surreal.
Yeah, and I mean, on our President's Cup wrap-up show a couple days earlier, I was talking to Matt Hogue, the governor of the Delta Islanders, and I think this summer for me truly as well, it was, the summer that I fell in love with the sport of lacrosse. And this past year, through our good pal Steve Erickson, I got to start covering the National Lacrosse League, going to the Vancouver Warriors games, but seeing the true evolution of this sport, seeing the true ins and outs of the sport at the junior level, whether it be junior A, B1, or B2. I think for myself, I started out the summer, just waiting for hockey season to come back, but by the end of it, like I did not want lacrosse to end. I think I can confidently say that now.
Now we're waiting for next summer all over again.
Indeed, it's like the circle of life. One sport ends, the thirst and hunger for that sport remains. But as soon as you start, covering another sport, you don't want that sport to end either.
Absolutely not. And I mean, for us, we're very fortunate to have the chance to call multiple different sports, multiple different organizations. And as somebody who's been very busy and even just like last year working with four different junior hockey teams, the people that you meet in all these different organizations, those are relationships and friendships that more often than not stand the test of time. I mean, I go all the way back to starting out with the Richmond Sockeyes. That was my very first gig in hockey, doing color alongside Steve Erickson. And now that's evolved into working with yourself as well. And I can't say enough good things about Will and Dougie and all of the crew over there in Richmond. And then with the Delta Ice Sox, obviously working with yourself and Steve again. And then Edward, the owner there. And then with the Chilliwack Jets, Clayton and those guys out there. It's just unreal the different people that you run into, all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, but all kind of with a common goal of putting forward the sport that they're a part of and really getting to see that in different forms is just amazing.
Let's take a little trip back to that first day, that first moment of realization where you realize that this is what you wanted to do. Broadcasting is the passion that you had, and this is what you wanted to do. So, what was just that moment like?
I think for me, one of the first moments was going way back to probably the CCAA National Basketball Championships that Langara hosted in Langley. I was scheduled to go in and do color just because obviously working with the UFE Cascades doing their PA work. That led to me having a whole bunch of different relationships within the sports community in the lower mainland. And Langara was asking UFE for help in people to do stuff for their championship. And I was supposed to do color actually with somebody from BCIT. I can't remember who it was supposed to be at the time. They just said it was going to be like a BCIT student. This is before I did my radio arts and entertainment program. And that person had like something come up and so they weren't able to make it. So they're like, "Hey, do you know how to do play by play?" And I'm like, Yeah, absolutely. I can give it a shot. And so I stepped into the play-by-play with Coach Paul Eberhardt of West Vancouver, and a whole bunch of other organizations around the Lower Mainland. He was my color guy, and those games that we did together were unbelievable. It was to see his passion and knowledge for basketball, and like me having grown up been a basketball player in high school, I had a feel and an understanding for how to call a basketball game, and listening to like Matt Devlin on TSN and whatnot, Jack Armstrong. And that to me, I think was one of the real first moments where I went, wow, like this, I really enjoy this. And this is something I could really see myself doing.
And I mean, we continue on and we move forward. Not many people know, but you also served as the PA voice of the Vancouver Bandits as well. And I know when it comes to announcing, there's so many different roles that you can have, but with PA, it does require a lot of energy and dedication. So when that opportunity arose and you got offered the chance to do PA, what was going through your head?
And the chance to do PA with the Vancouver Bandits, formerly the Fraser Valley Bandits, it was such a surreal experience because I was fortunate to know a lot of the people involved prior to that. I mean, Dylan Killar, the president of the team, was the president in the past of the Abbotsford Basketball Association. And so he had seen what I could do through the UFV Cascades. And so I got brought over to do some PA work and play by play work on Facebook Live for the big tournaments that Abbotsford had hosted, be it the Snowball or the Abbotsford Police Department tournament that's done out of Columbia Bible College. And then, of course, Andrew Savory, who was the vice president of the team at the time, him working color commentary. So he would sit in the seat right next to me at the UFE Cascades. Knowing those guys, I think, was kind of a huge, I guess, maybe pressure off of the shoulders, because these are people that I've known, these are people that I work with, and I know what they stand for and what they expect out of the people that they work with in the sports community. And that for me was the first time that I had gotten the chance to do what I do at the professional level. I mean, for us, what we do with these various leagues, be it the PGHL, the JPHL, the BCHL, we are still professionals at what we do because we get paid to do this, and we progressively work to develop our craft. But as far as working with a league that was at the professional level, as opposed to these leagues that are all amateur and junior and whatnot, it was a big step and a lot of eyes on that. And so to be a part of the inaugural history of the Fraser Valley Bandits, now the Vancouver Bandits, I'll never take that for granted. And just the level of professionalism and care that goes into working at that next level is something that you can then take and apply to everything that you do. And I think that's what a lot of people should strive to do in our line of work, is treat every level that you work at as if it is the highest level. It doesn't matter whether it's 12-year-old kids in double A or whether it's professionals at the highest level. These folks, their families, the fans, they all deserve to be exposed to somebody, be it the PA, the play-by-play, treating it as if it is the apex of what we do.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ian. However, you did make mention that the Richmond Sockeyes were your first opportunity to broadcast hockey and joining into the hockey world. Now, everybody has their own stories as to how they met the one and only Steve Erickson. I know I have my own. I know that you probably have your own as well. So, what was your story?
I mean, it was a bit interesting how that all worked with the Sockeyes, because originally Richmond had sent out an email to BCIT saying, "Hey, we're in need of help with our broadcast for the next season." And at the same time that they had done that, they had also reached out to Steve with Sportswave and his company that he runs there. And I had responded to the email because it was put out by Brian Weeb to the BCIT students that were in radio arts and entertainment. And then Steve, at the same time, had also responded kind of around the same time to Will and Dougie there with the Sockeyes. And so they're like, well, we've got both of you that have said you're going to help us out. So I guess you're both going to be working together. And so I showed up to my very first game and I got to meet Steve. And Steve, obviously, like the long-standing history, he wanted to do the play-by-play. And we originally didn't even actually have a camera person there. So in one of my very first games, I had started doing the camera and the color at the same time, which that was like again my first time doing color as well too, because prior to that it was I had done a couple of BCHL games actually for the Chilliwack Chiefs. So I mean, technically not my first foray, but my first full-time job being the Richmond Sockeyes. But I'd only ever done play-by-play before, so getting to kind of jump in and do color was a bit of an interesting way. But to the first time I met Steve, I immediately could tell the passion that he had had for, well, still has to this day, for junior hockey of all types around the lower mainland. And so having him imbue that into me and kind of learning the ins and outs was really, really cool.
Cable television is something that, it's definitely decreased the viewership in terms of the subscriptions and everyone, no one really, I don't want to say no one watches cable television, but the numbers have definitely died down. Now, one of the other teams you also covered, the Delta Ice Hawks, you get to call them on cable television,
Mhm.
Eastlink. And I guess my question surrounding this is when you first found out that there was the opportunity to call the Delta Ice Hawks for cable television, what was going through your head?
I think for me, it was again another one of those opportunities to try something new and to see a production at another level too. Because again, shout outs to Kevin Adlam at the crew at Eastlink in Delta, second to none. They are incredible at what they do and putting together that TV broadcast. And again, it's going out to that loyal group of fans and people on Eastlink that can tune into their local cable and support their local team if they can't make it out to the Ladner Leisure Center and see those games in person, especially with how bad we know the weather can get in Ladner at a moment's notice. There's been many a hectic drive home from the LLC in the middle of winter time on a Tuesday night. But again, to see again the timings of working with the the commercial breaks and things like that, and knowing when to cut in, and then of course the extra added lights and the quality of cameras, and working with the different local dignitaries that come out to support and be a part of those broadcasts as well. I think when Steve had asked me to help him out with those, I knew that he understood the quality of work that he was getting from me, and that chemistry that we had developed with working together with Richmond was only going to continue to evolve and go to that next level when working with Delta. So the chance to work with Kevin and them has taught me a whole lot from doing that. And so that chance, what was going through my head was, oh boy, here we go.
And Ian, by that point in time, by the time you had already started with Richmond and Delta, it was at that point where, your craft was really starting to develop. You were taking pride in your work, but you were also putting all that hard work in to try and take the next step in your broadcasting career. That next step came in the form of landing a play-by-play gig with the Chilliwack Jets. When you got that opportunity, just I guess, to put it into perspective, because this is something that I felt in before, like did you sort of have that moment where you realized that all my hard work was finally starting to pay off?
Absolutely. And at the same time as well, too, there was also, I mean, going from year one to year two in the PJHL was where I also picked up the play-by-play gig with the Coquitlam Express in the BCHL. And at the same time, then also getting Chilliwack as well. So there's a lot getting added in to the plate at one time. And so to see all those different organizations, all those pieces fall into place at once to go now from Richmond and Delta to from two teams to four for season two and working in hockey period, it was definitely an excellent kind of moment of this is what happens when you work hard, as you put it. It's you have those little moments where anytime that the grind starts to maybe get you down or it feels like, oh, maybe I'm stuck, I'd say remember who and why you're doing this for. Because even just there was a time where, again, it was the dregs of winter time, lots of stuff was going on, full-time job after graduation, and then still working with all these junior teams. And again, it just felt like a lot was on the plate right now. And then I opened up my closet and I saw a t-shirt that one of the families from the Express had given me. It was like a like the pride of Lac du Bonnet, Manitoba, because they brought me this shirt because every time I would introduce their kid, I would call them the pride of Lac du Bonnet, Manitoba. They had flown in for a parent weekend and they brought this tourist shirt with them to give to me because they loved how I introduced their kid. And just little moments like that, I think, are what kind of propel forward and are the true, this is why we're doing this. And hey, I've made it. We're making a difference.
I guess it also helped that you didn't have to take that long of a drive to get to the Sardis Sports Complex as opposed to Richmond and Delta.
Oh yeah, my poor Volkswagen. That car got used like a rented mule over the past couple of years, be it like taking the radio arts and entertainment program at BCIT and then the full-time work. I mean, fortunately, the full-time work traffic reporting has been all done remote, but then of course, evenings and weekends, at least 4 nights of the week, be it Tuesdays in Delta, Thursdays in Richmond, Friday, Saturdays in Coquitlam, and then Sundays are my day off, so to speak, where I only have to go to um the Chilliwack Jets, the Sardis Sports Complex. Beautiful rink out there. But even then, I would still on the Sundays, it would be wake up, go to men's league basketball in the mornings in Abbotsford, then go to Langley for the Arena Lacrosse League games, and then backtrack to Sardis Sports Complex in Chilliwack. So, I mean, every time you look at a person's path, maybe when you're not understanding the different things that are going into what they're doing, but when you kind of get looking behind the veil, everybody's got their own path and everybody's got their different things that they have to go through. And in my case, a lot of it's just been the geography living out in Agassiz in the eastern Fraser Valley here. It's the Express is an hour drive away. The Sockeyes are an hour and a half. Delta's an hour and a half. So to get that 20-minute drive to the Sardis Sports Complex is a treat.
Indeed it is. And I think I can definitely relate in the sense of being either Richmond or even being in Delta as well. Ladner is about a 20-minute drive from my house and Richmond is about a 10-15 minute drive. So, that was definitely a blessing for myself. And now having to go all the way out to South Surrey, it'll be quite the drive, especially when it's snowing like crazy in the winter time. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Take it from the traffic guy. You're going to have a lot of fun on Friday afternoons trying to get down the 99.
Oh, I will keep that in mind. But now we talk a little bit about, a gig that you sort of expanded on this past summer, but we go back to when you first got the job, the Coquitlam Express. How did you land that gig and what's it been like being a part of that organization so far?
So the Express was, I mean, as is the case a lot in this industry, a little bit of timing, a little bit of luck. Coming out of my first season working in the PJHL, I was looking into what's next. Are there any other opportunities out there? And Eddie Gregory, longtime broadcaster for the Coquitlam Express, he had the opportunity to make the jump to the WHL. He joined the Vancouver Giants. And so that left a hole for the Coquitlam Express. And I had seen the post like congratulating Eddie from the Express on his jump into the dub. And so I immediately messaged Tally Campbell on Twitter. I was like, hey, this is me. This is what I do. This is my experience so far. I had been very fortunate to have been doing play by play with the Arena Lacrosse League at that point. So I had that a recency in my play-by-play experience, as well as having done the color with Richmond and Delta. And then I also had those couple of BCHL games with the Chiefs. Funny enough, some of them against Coquitlam because I did a few playoff games for Chilliwack when
Wow.
Brandon Astle, who's now the play-by-play broadcaster of the Abbotsford Canucks, there was a couple of games where he was getting tried out for Abbotsford, and so I filled in for him with Chilliwack. And so all that experience came together, and within about 48 hours, I was announced as the new play-by-play broadcaster for the Coquitlam Express going into 2022, 2023. Yes, that'd be the right season. I was trying to keep time goes by way too quick, Jag.
I know.
I cannot believe that I'm going into season 3 with the Express already. And yeah, so that quickly started with me working with the crew of Starlight Productions, as they were known at the time, in Shahab and Felix. And so that Started out as, I mean, I was brand new to the BCHL. They were recently come in and helped do the broadcast crew for the Express. And it was pretty raw at the beginning. Like, I mean, obviously, I've come a long way since I first started, and so had them. So to see where we were at the beginning to now, where we've gotten to, going from, I think when we started, the Express was one of the lower ranked broadcasts in the league, like I think bottom three, and to now see the statistics where we're one of the top three in the league coming out of this past season, working with the city of Coquitlam and the work that Tally did, as well as the broadcast crew, to bring in the video board in the arena, to bring in the TriCaster, the 3-play system, the above the net cams, all this stuff that now Trickshot, as Starlight renamed themselves to help develop that broadcast and develop that product that we were given to the players and their families, to see what it started as to where it is now, second to none. It's been unreal to be a part of. And now, as you had made mention to, the evolution of that is for this summer. I've now stepped into the role with the Express where I'm not just their broadcaster anymore. I am now their manager of broadcasting and community relations. So this next season, I'll be working a lot with Shahab and his crew, as well as Owen Stanley and the media team, to help produce content for the team, as well as managing all things related to the broadcast, helping to work with getting new sponsorship, making sure there's video content to go out on the broadcast, interviews, scheduling players that are scratched or injured to come in and chat with us, as well as the local dignitaries and the people that we bring in for specialty games, and then doing community relations things and helping with one of the most important things to the Express, which has been their community involvement and helping schedule those players and venturing out and finding new opportunities for the players to get involved within the community. Because like, even when I started with the team, it was very evident, the emphasis that Fayaz and his family, as well as Tally and the rest of the staff, put on getting involved in the community, because it's not just about getting better on the ice. It's about getting better off the ice and who you are as a person, and developing those skills and those values in being a part of your community and helping make that a better place.
I was about to say, no pressure, eh? Coming in and having to do playoff game.
Oh, the I think the very first game I did, I was fortunate with Chilliwack that it was a regular season game, because the very first one I ever did was, I did do color with Brandon. He brought me in on the broadcast, a game against the Wenatchee Wild in March of 2022. And I believe we won that game in overtime, did Chilliwack. And then did, I think, one or two games during the season. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, you're going to the Poirier and you're calling the road playoff game. And it's like, I'm doing what? I'm doing what now? So I was set up in the opposite corner of the booth. I mean, the Poirier booth looks a little bit different than it did before. There's a wall down the middle, whereas before it was all wide open. So of course Shahab and all them are there, and Eddie Gregory's on the other side, and it was a wild atmosphere in there. But yeah, no pressure. Just go in, call a big playoff game against two local rivals that always beat the crap out of each other every time they have a chance to meet in the playoffs. It's no big deal. So it was a bit of a jump, that's for sure, to go from, and I mean, obviously the PGHL has been making leaps and bounds and strides even since, like, the time when I first started in the league. The what they've been doing, especially now with the introduction to the Western Canadian Development Model, I believe I have that title correct, and their partnership with the WHL, to see that jump, though, at the time, from the Junior B to playoff Junior A, just unbelievable, and I instantly fell in love.
I can attest to a good playoff atmosphere at the Poirier, albeit it not being for hockey. I got a chance to call a junior B playoff game for the Coquitlam Adanacs against the Delta Islanders, and that was a game that came right down to the wire. And while we may have not had a crowd as loud as the Minto Cup, I can definitely say that it was a great crowd on hand, and the Coquitlam community, and I know you can attest to this, they love their sports.
And just a sidebar on that note, congrats on that call on the Spencer Vandenberg goal, less than 30 seconds to go. That was wicked, brother.
Oh no, that's thank you. That is that means a lot to me. I told Shahab at the time as well. Shahab was sitting right beside me and he had his hands on his head the entire time. It was an amazing atmosphere, man. And heading into that game, I remember getting the message earlier from the day from Shahab, like, hey, can you make it out tonight? And at first I was like, what game could he need me for? But then I saw, oh my God, this is a winner take all game three to who's gonna go into the finals. And I was like,
Hmm.
I immediately told him like, "Hey, buddy, I'll be there. I'll be there." I think I must have spammed him 3 or 4 times just to let him know that I will be there.
Yeah, make sure you got your spot in the action.
Yeah, one 100%. And I mean, from a hockey standpoint, I also very much look forward to visiting the Poirier this year. I think, the first time it may be this upcoming September 13th when the Eagles are going to be facing off against the Express in preseason games. And we're trying to get full confirmation on that, but that is, the first time that I hope to be out at the Poirier this year.
Dude, and we talk about stories, we talk about paths and evolution, and big congratulations to you on becoming the play-by-play broadcaster of the Surrey Eagles for this coming season. I've already the content that you guys have been putting out and the care and attention to that, working with Richard there. You guys are going to be doing something special this year. Like that season ticket video I saw you doing, that was some good stuff right there.
And I tell this to everyone all the time. Me and I'm only as good as the people around me, and I wouldn't be in the place where I'm at without having the guidance, the support, the mentorship that I've received from my broadcasting partners, from my great friends so far. And you are a massive part in where I consider myself today. So, I think credit goes to you as well for just being such an inspiration, just being so supportive. Any questions that I ever had, I could have, I always go up and ask you, and you always give me a response. You've never told me no once. So, a big thank you to you on that part as well.
Hey, Jag, those words are just, you don't know what those mean to me, man. Like to be in the position where I'm at, where I now have that bit of experience under my belt. And I mean, obviously, I'm nowhere near the level of some other people as far as how much they've seen, how much they've done, and what they're able to then take that experience and put it forward to the next generation. But for me, every little bit that I can do to try and help the future of broadcasting and the future of people's goals as well too. I mean, for me, you're only as you put it, you're only as successful as those you surround yourself with. And if you surround yourself with the right people that have the right motivations, the right goals, that want to do things the right way, that's only going to serve to benefit yourself. And so to have people like Steve, like yourself, like Joey Pitt, all the rest of the guys in the BCHL, the Jordan Dobrus, the Lucas Chellies of the world. These are people that care deeply about what they do. And so to know that I've been able to make an impact on somebody that is as hardworking as you, that cares about this as much as you do, that wants to see the betterment and the forwarding of their cultural representation in sport, the sport in general, and what it means to people around them and how it can build community. Like, I'm there, man. I've already made it. Like, if I can help people feel better about what they do and further develop their own goals and dreams, that's it. That's the end game.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it so much, especially after the announcement was made that I was taking on in Surrey, and this was sort of a moment of self-reflection that I had as well. Like I had the opportunity to kind of sit back and just think, like, I worked so hard to get to the point where, I had a chance to take myself to that next level. But I also had that moment of reflection that, man, had it not been for me joining Steve and Ian in December, that day where I did, like, who knows where I would have been. And Ian, I don't know if I told many people this or not many people know, but it was the game that you and I did together in Ridge Meadows, game four of the Stonehouse Cup finals, where I was taken notice of. And that was from that game on was where, I was taken notice of from what I was told that I would be, heading up to that next level.
And rightfully so, brother. That was a heck of a game. And the for calling, I mean, obviously we were fortunate with the Richmond side of things that we know a lot about their team. I mean, to go in and be tasked with calling the other team's home game, but then still giving it that down the middle, professional, fair to both sides broadcast that the Stonehouse Cup final deserves. Like you killed it, brother. And to know, and like speaking to that, I've always said in everything that I've ever done is you never know who's listening. You never know where your voice is going to end up when you do some of these gigs. It doesn't matter whether it's the professional level, if it's a charity event, if it's a random YouTube live stream or a Facebook live feed for a high school basketball game. You never know who's listening. And so always make sure that in everything that you do that you're putting your best self forward.
So, Ian, as we look forward to this upcoming season for the Coquitlam Express, let's talk a little bit about the on-ice performance. Last season, they suffered a defeat at the hands of the Alberni Valley Bulldogs, losing in 7 games. And I remember you telling me about that series, how it was like going to the dog pound, as they like to call it over in Alberni Valley, the crowd that it was there, and seeing the way the Express performed. Just heading into this upcoming season, there have been some players that have graduated, but the Express, obviously, I think today they actually started their training camp. And what are things looking like for the Coquitlam Express from an on-ice perspective this year?
It's going to be an interesting one to say the very least. I mean, obviously, anytime you go from one season to the next, you've got players going out, players coming in, but there is a lot of exciting talent that's coming out of the ice here for training camp. I think there's 37 players that have been invited to main camp coming in starting this weekend. And I mean, obviously, already taken to the ice. The schedule is out, and the players are fighting tooth and nail. I mean, there's a lot of grueling practice, a lot of the drills that are going on. Players are left gassed after some of the stuff they've been doing, both on and off of the ice. And I think for a lot of these players, I mean, it's a mixture of international talent, of local talent from various different leagues that's coming up. Of course, we got the returning players, Joe Odenek, James Shannon, Sebastian Bradshaw, the goalies, Eric Young and Ethan Simcoe are being joined by a new guy coming into camp as well, too. It's going to be exciting to see what this group can do, and especially now too with some of the JPHL guys that are trying to crack the squad as well. I mean, we saw Adam Konowalchuk, the captain of Coquitlam HC's U18 team last season. Sean Mann is on the main camp roster. Tyler Magdalinsky of Langley HC, or Langley HA, I should say, sorry, is coming in as well too. So there's a lot of really interesting opportunities for players to carve out for themselves. And this Coquitlam squad, I mean, obviously you're losing a lot of some of those key guys over the last couple seasons. I mean, with like Jake Manfrey, Drew Garzone going off to college and graduating, some of these guys that have aged out. There was a lot of moves that had to be made because we had a pretty old defensive core last season with a lot of 19-year-olds that were moving into their 20-year-old season. So to see a lot of those fresh faces coming in, and there's a lot of puck movement on that back end to go into some of the grit and grind, especially Leo Eperiesi that's coming in from overseas. He's a big body, and so it'll be exciting to see how he transitions his game out of the North American ice.
Adam Manji as well, losing him will be, it will be a tough blow for the Express, seeing how good he was between the pipes.
Yeah, Adam is going to be leaving quite the legacy in the Express crease, especially with his mentorship of those guys that I had mentioned, like Eric Young and Ethan Simcoe. Those were two guys that throughout the entire season got to work with Adam. And that big 6'5" Burnaby brick wall, he stepped in and again had a bit of an interesting finish to his career with the Express because he was lights out in that series against the Bulldogs, and just kind of the offense never really caught fire the way it needed to get out of that 7-game set with Alberni. But again, that was a tough team that had just recently come off of going all the way to the finals the season before against the Penticton V's, and they didn't lose a whole lot of bodies going from that season into the next. So they went tooth and claw against one of the better teams in this league. And I mean, obviously there was also the big shift with Patrick Sexton being let go as the head coach coming into the end of last season. So now it's a completely full new like slate for the Express. I mean, obviously, Jeff Wagner coming in as the full-time head coach. I mean, he did an incredible job stepping in as the interim head coach for the Express in that opening round playoff series. It's a tough spot to be put into, but I think he handled it really, really well. So to come in and now be it's him full-time head coach spot with the team. He's being joined by an incredible crew of assistant coaches. Brett Son being one of them coming in. We just saw what he did with the Ridge Meadows Flames coming off a Stonehouse Cup championship season. So And then Kyle Johnson as well, rounding out that assistant coach crew that'll be helping Jeff behind the benches this season. So it's a lot of exciting stuff coming up this year for Coquitlam.
Yeah, I think I can relate to, I think Coquitlam kind of relates in Surrey in that sort of aspect where it's just a whole lot of new changes. Obviously, Cam Keith left the Eagles to move on to Couch and Scott Gomez took over as head coach. And you talk about players being gone. And I mean, when it comes to mine and Surrey, like, there's just been so much turnover in terms of the players, and I think even losing that top line of Aaron Schwartz, Caden Cranston, and Micah Berger, how vital they were to that Eagles offense. I think, like you said, it's going to be a clean slate for many BCHL teams this year.
Well, there's always going to be that turnover, but it's a matter of how do those guys that are still there after the turnover, how do they work to kick it into the next gear? I mean, so many times in the BCHL, we see guys go from being third, fourth line guys who didn't get a whole lot of offensive opportunities, whereas all of a sudden they age up another year. 20-year-olds leave, 19-year-olds go off to college, and then there's just that kind of vacuum to be filled. And these guys that had a 5 to 10 goal season all of a sudden go on to crack off 30 to 40, and they'll have close to 100-point seasons. And you never know who that next kind of dark horse is going to be that's going to show up for these teams. And with the BCHL's move to independence over the last couple of years, the new blood that's been allowed to come into this league and the different ways that we've been able to expand that scouting across the world and to be bringing in this incredible talent, as well as in further enticing the local talent to stay and compete in this league as well too, is just making for a better BCHL. And anytime there's better hockey on the ice, it just means that our jobs are that much more exciting.
It should be a fun season for the Express nonetheless. You know, head GM Tally Campbell has done a great job. I know there was a new clubhouse or a new office facility being made for the Coquitlam Express and the Coquitlam HC program with everything they're doing in the JPHL and you know the new initiatives that Tally has done with the Vancouver Canucks as well. It should make for quite an exciting season for the Express, Ian. But if we move on a little bit now back to the PJHL, you know, the Chilliwack Jets, let's start with them. Last season, they came up short against the Ridge Meadows Flames. It came down to one, you know, a decisive game, which you know, it could have gone either way, but the Ridge Meadows Flames had their offense was just powering through the Harold Britton Conference last year. And if you look at the Chilliwack Jets heading into this season, you know, in your mind, what are the expectations that you have for this group?
I think this team a couple of seasons ago, it was very top heavy. I mean, we look at the guys like Brendan Williamson, Zach Fever. This was a team that was really heavily relying on 20-year-olds, the veteran guys. And then this past season, we saw the start of the shift of that. We saw Chris Price come in as the head coach. We saw a bit of a change in that. And I mean, obviously, we knew at the beginning of the year, like Clayton Robinson had gone with a very, very young team. There were a lot of guys coming up from the house programs in Abbotsford, in Chilliwack. Like there was a lot of guys from Chilliwack Minor Hockey Association U18 that had come up and were filling some of the slots on this team. And then, of course, we had, oh my goodness, their name is escaping me, the Brideau brothers, Jesse and Merrick, that came out of the Prince George Cougars U18 program and U17 program. And so to see this shift in going with the younger bodies, and I think that was something we saw kind of around the league this year too. Like even we look at what the Richmond Sockeyes did this past year. I mean, we go look at guys like Daniel Zhao was an 05, Willie Ho, I believe, was an 06 player this past season. Younger guys that were coming in and really putting their stamp on this league. It was no longer just looking at the top 20 in scoring and seeing 20-year-old, 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 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 20-year-old. There were a lot of 06s, 07s, 05s that were putting in the work and kind of shifting things. So to see this team have such a good second half of the year, because it was a rough first half and they put it together, the Chilliwack Jets did, in the second half. I think now with a lot of those guys returning for this season and the new blood that's been brought in, I mean, this team, I mean, obviously preseason is one thing, but they've been on a tear. I believe they're 5-1 or something like that in the preseason up to this point, and getting ready for their home opener coming up very, very soon. this is a team that's got a lot of expectations. I mean, their back end has been built out because that's going to be one of their big question marks. I mean, we saw Mitchell Metcalf graduate, we saw Jaden Martin graduate. There's a lot of opportunities on that back end for Blue Liners to establish themselves for being in this league. And then, of course, also trying to get up to that next level with the Western Canadian Development Model and the WHL scouts looking into this league as well. Much, much more. It's going to be exciting.
We didn't really touch on this much, but a great crew running the broadcast out in Chilliwack as well with your broadcast partner Ryan Zaitzoff and For the Win Media, everything that they do. What's it been like getting to be a part of something as special as that?
I cannot say enough good things about For the Win Media, Robbie Snooks and his crew out there in Chilliwack. I mean, they're also the primary broadcast crew for the Chilliwack Chiefs over at Chilliwack Coliseum. They do the Valley Giants in the or the Fraser Valley, or not Valley Giants. I think they do Valley Giants games as well too in the minor football, but the Valley Huskers in the CJFL. They do Langley Rams as well too. Like they're all over the place. And like this past season, I got introduced to Ryan as he had got a hold of Robbie and was saying that he wanted to help out and volunteer with the team and be a part of them in some way, shape, or form because he had a history in broadcasting as well. And I mean, you ready for me to blow your mind? I don't know if I ever told you this, but Ryan back in 2003 was the play-by-play broadcaster of the Coquitlam Express.
Wow.
And now here we were in the 2023-2024 season. Now 20 years later, the play-by-play broadcaster for the Express and Ryan working together with the Chilliwack Jets. It's such an unbelievably small world, especially in broadcasting. But that blew my mind. That was so cool, that kind of connection that there was. And Ryan is incredible. Like the level of detail and effort that he put in to preparing for these games against all these different teams and just added so much to that broadcast. And so now for this season, I mean, with my expanded role with the Express, depending on the travel with the team, there are going to be less games that I'm able to make for Chilliwack. So I'm going to be missing more than I would have last year. And so Ryan's going to be stepping up into that play-by-play spot if I'm ever not there. And as he puts it, he's like, he says, Ian, it's your bus to drive. I'm just happy to be a passenger. I'm like, brother, you're going to be getting the keys this year, so I hope you're ready. But yeah, the work that Robbie and them do out there, like all of these different broadcast crews. I mean, Richard and his crew with you guys in Surrey, For the Win Media out in Chilliwack, Trick Shot with Coquitlam, For Vengeance Media with the JPHL. There's so many people. I mean, obviously the play-by-play guys, the guys on the camera, we get a lot of the credit because we're the ones that people see, we're the voices that you hear, but there's never enough credit given to the people behind the camera that without them, there would be no us. There'd be no broadcast going out for people to see.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. And we go from Chilliwack all the way out here to Ladner, to the Ladner Leisure Center, the home of the Delta Ice Hawks, even though they have not, I don't even know if the ice is in yet. LLC, if I'm being honest with you, the President's Cup just wrapped up, and that was, it was a lot of fun being a part of that. The President's Cup as well. But we talk about this Delta Ice Hawks team, Ian, coming last year, coming off of a Stonehouse Cup championship in their own right. To begin the season, they started off without some of their players, that being Yuji Akimoto. He was not, a part of the team due to various different reasons. He couldn't play. I think there were some back end reasons that were going on. Zach Shaughnessy got injured as well. So Jacob Zillage stepped up to take on the starting role. Remy Quintoro was the backup. Now we reached towards the end of the season. Jacob Zillage got traded. Mason Upton came to the Delta Ice Hawks organization. He was also an aging 20. Now Zach Shaughnessy and Remy Quintoro ended things off in the playoffs, and the Ice Hawks, things didn't end the way they wanted to, losing to the Richmond Sockeyes. And this news actually came out a couple of days ago that Remy Quintoro was actually traded to the North Van Wolfpack for a player development fee, and a very surprising name popped up on that exhibition roster that I took note of, someone that I know that you know very well, Ian, and Merrick Erickson. Now, Merrick Erickson, we hadn't seen him since that championship winning season because I believe he went to play off elsewhere, but he still did have a year of junior hockey eligibility left, I think. So with Steve Robinson, he had to choose as to which goaltending duo that he wanted to go with. And I think, we saw what he did. He chose Merrick Erickson and Zach Shaughnessy. Now, heading into the season for this Delta IceHogs team, just your overall thoughts.
Well, to hear that Merrick Erickson is back in the mix, I mean, he was a guy we go back a couple seasons ago, seeing like him and Zach Shaughnessy duke it out, and then Shaughnessy in the season that they went all the way to the Stonehouse had really established himself as that guy to go in and be the one to be nodded to. I know that Merrick has got a lot that he'll be wanting to kind of battle back into that lineup is something to prove as I believe he's an 04, is he not? So he'll be a
Yes.
20-year-old coming into this season. That is an incredible amount of goaltending depth to be able to add back into your organization. And I mean, the Delta Ice Sox have had no shortage of that over the past few seasons at any position. Like they'll obviously their ties to the Delta Hockey Academy. There is a very, very deep hockey community in Delta that people may not immediately think of when they think about Delta and Ladner. But when you think about Delta Minor Hockey Association, the Delta Hockey Academy, these are programs that are putting out incredible players that we've seen all across the league. I mean, the Richmond Sockeyes as well have had some incredible alumni of the Delta Hockey Academy come through their ranks as well and play pivotal roles that we've seen in the past few seasons, with Richmond helping lead them all the way to the Stonehouse Cup final. We've seen guys end up on the rosters in the Ridge Meadows Flames as well. But for the Delta Ice Sox, I think especially losing the Merriman brothers coming into this season, losing Yuji Akamoto, losing some of these key pillars. I mean, we saw when Alex Skouras left the team and the hole that left in the captaincy, and the way the Delta Ice Hawks had to rediscover themselves. I mean, this was a team that 2 seasons ago had the most penalty minutes in junior hockey across Canada. Full
Wow.
stop. I'm pretty sure they were the most penalty minutes in the regular season across any league in Canada. To go to
Wow.
last year, they were one of the most sportsmanlike teams. Well, I mean, obviously there was a couple of moments, there always is in various teams, and they go out there and things get heated, but they had one of the fewest amount of penalty minutes across the Pacific Junior Hockey League. So to make that jump from one season to the next speaks volumes to Steve Robinson and what he's been able to do with this new younger crew. And that continues into this season where, as you said, across the PJHL, it's been kind of the youth are taking over. Is this league is starting to continually get these higher caliber younger players that are wanting to be in this league, and they see what this league is able to do as far as their development and their goals of wanting to get to the BCHL, to the WHL, to wherever it is their next steps are going to be.
We talk about younger players in the league. A prime example would that what of that would be Nick Noren of the Richmond Sockeyes. I believe he was top five in PJHL scoring last year, and we all know Justin Grant was the top scorer. He aged out. He was an aging out 20, and I honestly got that confused when I asked head coach Colin Ravel earlier at training camp. I was like, "Hey, so is G coming back?" He's like, "Oh, like buddy, he aged out," and it took me a while to remember it again because these guys, they were so talented, right? It seemed like there was no age attached to them. Like we talk about the Richmond Sockeyes and their last season, 45 wins, one regulation loss, two overtime losses, a season that people hadn't seen in junior hockey for quite some time. Ultimately, we all know how things ended on April 1st, and that's a day, it's like how Canucks fans don't want to remember June 15th, 2011. I think April 1st, 2024 is also a day that I don't like to remember back on too fondly, but you head into this season now, and they've lost quite a lot of few of those guys that made that team so special last year, but retaining guys like Nick Noren, Teo Lin coming back, Noah Gibbons is coming back, and you talk about new guys, Nick Kovic, for example, Dawson Suke coming into the mix. In terms of goaltending, we'll have Oliver Reed. I know Oliver Reed will be back, and Matthias Hasselman, another product of the Delta Hockey Academy, will be joining the Richmond Sockeyes this upcoming year. Now, Ian, I know that you and I both know that that last year is going to be real hard to repeat in terms of the exact numbers going 45, 1, and 2. But for the Richmond Sockeyes, do you sort of hold the same expectations as last year?
I think it's unrealistic to expect that level of excellence year after year because especially in this league, which there's so much development going on, it is so different year from year. Obviously, you keep a lot of those pieces, you keep a lot of those players that come year to year. And I mean, I guess it's not unrealistic to expect that. You can expect what you want out of your teams. And I think with the Richmond Sockeyes, because they achieved that, they have every right to say this is now the standard. This is what we know we're capable of if we have the right people buying into the right system and playing Richmond hockey. I mean, Colin Ravel came in last season, filling in for Bane Cohen, and completely shifted, I think, the culture in that locker room. And a lot of people bought in to what Cullen was selling in what he brought as far as his experience all around the world and really applied a professionalism to that locker room of this is how we are going to conduct ourselves. And it does not matter what the rest of the teams in this league, what the rest of the hockey world thinks of us. We are going to hold to our standards and we are going to play our style of hockey. And it worked. They went out like gangbusters. Obviously, they came up short in their ultimate goal of the Stonehouse Cup and then going on to the Cyclone Taylor. I mean, now the Junior A championship, as they called it this past season, but historically the Cyclone Taylor for Junior B. Now, obviously, the whole Junior A elevation being things being a little bit different. But I think if they continue to buy in, and these players that they're bringing in are players that they know are going to fit pieces within that system, I think 100% they can do it again. I think that especially it's going to be tougher because we look at all of the teams in the league and the players that they're bringing in. I think it's going to be a heck of a lot tougher to do that this year, especially with the introduction of the Western Canadian development model, because now there's potentially going to be players, I mean, more movement now. I mean, we saw last season Willie Ho having a couple of stints up with the Seattle Thunderbirds. I think now with that official development model in place, you're going to see players on a lot of teams having a lot more movement. So that does create difficulties in players kind of getting into a flow and knowing who their line mates are and things like that. But it's going to be an interesting season in the PJHL, Jack.
From the PJHL to the JPHL. This past season, Ian, at the JPHL, I mean, this is a league that continues to grow. I fortunately have had the honor of being with them right from day one, that very first time they took the ice at Planet Ice in Delta to what this league has become now, forming the partnership with the BCHL. And you yourself, Ian, have had, the same honor as myself getting to broadcast games for these, but you yourself was actually you were a part of a very big production this past March, I believe it was, out in Edmonton for the JPHL championships. And I mean, watching from home, my eyes were left in awe as to how great of a broadcast, how great of a program that the For Vengeance Media crew put on. For yourself, what was it like getting to be a part of that?
Getting to go out to Edmonton and work right there at the heart of it all at the Silent Ice Center. I mean, first things first, that is a beautiful facility that Dan LeKelt and all those folks had put their kind of blood, sweat, and tears to make a reality. And then for the For Vengeance media crew, Brandon Ewan Cheshin, Dean Millard, and all of those folks kind of bringing it to life from the production perspective. Because obviously, it's one thing to have this beautiful rink, it's another thing to make it look beautiful on a broadcast. And seeing what Brandon and Dean and them did in that championship series, I mean, that was a grind. It was 4 games a day of the U14, U15, U17, U18. Do the first game and then boom, right into the next game, and seeing how everything moved in that arena with players going into these locker rooms and out of those rooms, and then making sure the transitions were in place for the panel and having the guests lined up and everything. I mean, it was the first time for me that I had gotten to travel really period for this work that I do. I mean, getting brought out somewhere really. I mean, obviously, I'd had the chance prior to that because I had gone on the road with the Express for the opening round of 2023 to 20 or no 2022 to 2023 in my inaugural season. But I mean, that's only going to Chilliwack, and for me, that's like a home game being 20 minutes from my
Yeah.
house in Agassiz. But to get to be flown out to another province to work that, again, you talk about just kind of moments where you go, wow, like I've made it. It was really cool to be a part of that experience and to go somewhere else and see a different province from a different angle and a different lens. And like to see now, obviously, Brandon moving on to work with his family business this offseason, they brought in Trevor Miller as the new, I believe it's the director of broadcasting is his official title there. So big shoes to fill, but Trevor coming out of West Kelowna, I think is going to do an absolutely bang up job. And of course, Dean Millard's still there for another season, and they've already been putting out some awesome content in the off season to help build that kind of momentum into this year. And now we've got the U18 showcase that's going to be at the BCHL showcase in Chilliwack. The sky is the limit. And so to go from Edmonton there for the championship in March to now what the broadcasts are going to be here again in BC and across that league, it's incredible.
Yeah, and from I've never gotten a chance to be a part of something, like a BCHL showcase, but from what I hear, it'll sort of feel like an all-star game in a way because all of these, from what I'm assuming, all broadcasters will also come together to get to call their own respective teams and getting to be there to broadcast some great hockey. And I think for us, we're so fortunate the fact that it's still here on the mainland that it's not that big of a travel issue for us getting to head out and broadcast this.
Well, like I said, it's a home game week for me, baby. Like Agassiz's only 20 minutes east of Chilliwack. So, I mean, I'm sure that one way or another, obviously I've got my own games with the Express that'll be calling. There's JPHL games for the showcase that I'll be a part of. And I'm sure I might end up stepping behind the PA mic as well, too. Carson Loeid might be back as well again this year to be working some of the stuff alongside the PA announcer for the Chiefs, Dave Mahoney, and it's going to be a good time. I mean, it's always a spectacle, and I think having it in Chilliwack is really nice because it's very central for a lot of the teams, be it they're coming in from the island or they're coming in from the interior. They've got the access to the secondary sheet there as well too, and I mean, as far as the rinks within the BCHL, I mean, the Chilliwack Coliseum is right up there alongside, I'd say. I think the South Okanagan Event Center might be the only one you could call better, just as far as like size or how it looks or however you want to put it. But the Coliseum is a pretty big deal to be able to have the showcase there.
And I mean, we talked about the movement in the BCHL as well. It's sort of like, I don't want to say a circle of life, but like a circle of broadcasting in a sort of way with Trevor Miller coming in from West K to take over Spruce Grove, and the new West K announcer being Joey Pitt, who was previously announcer for the Surrey Eagles, and now myself coming into the Surrey Eagles role. It's so crazy to think how things move that certain way.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see people making the moves, making the jumps. And I mean, for Joey as well, too. I mean, he was very fortunate to be able to call home and road games for the Eagles and then had that incredible run to the Fred Page Cup in the BCHL final, and going all the way out to his own stomping grounds in Penticton for that BCHL final run. I think that was kind of really fairy tale for him to be a part of. And now seeing his work ethic and ability recognized in now becoming the director of broadcasting and digital content for the West K Warriors. I mean, I actually just got to visit with him recently. I was on a road trip throughout BC, and one of my stops was in Kelowna. So I met up with him, got to see his new place, and I tell you, he's probably got one of the best views of anybody's place I've seen. Like he's got a full view of the lake there. He looks like he's going to be having a good year in West K, and already some of the content that I've seen them put forward, and West K's adding in a video board. I know Surrey's adding in a video board for this season. So the BCHL is continually developing their craft, not just in the players and the product that's put out on the ice, but taking care in the fan product and the digital content and the people that are behind the scenes with like Richard getting promoted for you guys, you being brought in, Liam Higgs being brought in. And then, like I said, in our case, we've had people get promotions within the scouting departments. Jeff Wagner going up to head coach, myself getting brought in with community relations as well as the broadcasting. Shahab and his crew are going to have some more responsibilities this year with trick shots. So it's been a summer and a half to say the least. So like to see everybody so successful and seeing everybody's kind of goals being realized in what they've been able to accomplish in this offseason. I'm stoked. I'm fired up for another year. I'm excited to see what everybody does, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it.
As we kind of inch towards the end of our chat here, I wanted to ask you a few rapid fire questions just about your career. So, I'll ask you the questions and you can give your answer.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, my first question to you, your favorite call of your broadcasting career so far?
Ooh, it's either the tell the fire department to stand down because Chilliwack have extinguished the flames. When we got a shootout win last season against Ridge Meadows. It was a big one in the second half of the year. Or potentially the Brock McDougal OT winner at um the JPHL finals, and another close one in there is the championship call for the Arena Lacrosse League these past couple of years. There's been some incredible games that have gone on there at the Langley Event Center. So there's a couple of good ones in there.
I know two of those I have access to, so I'll make sure to clip them and post them on our page up for share so our listeners can have a look. And my second question to you, Ian, your favorite game that you've broadcasted in your career so far?
Favorite game that I've broadcasted. There was a game that I got to do play-by-play and PA at the same time for the UFE Cascades basketball team. That's definitely up there as a fun experience. And as well, as much as it didn't go our way in the end, the game five, I believe it was, on home ice for the 2023 playoffs, Coquitlam versus Chilliwack. The Express came back down to, they pulled the goalie and scored twice to tie the game up to go into OT, and then they ended up losing it in OT. But that game was wild front to back.
My third question, throughout this journey of broadcasting so far, what are some lessons you've learned about yourself?
Some lessons I've learned about myself. I think it's been how much I've enjoyed the people along the way. Like I've always growing up, like I grew up as a scout, and so one of the key principles of that is like helping out and like helping make the world a better place. And I think for me has been seeing what are the things I've valued the most. Like for me, there's never been a better feeling than like I talked about earlier with meeting the families and friends of the players and having them be like, thank you for doing what you do. Because obviously, for the folks that their kids going across the country or heck, even across the world to play the sport that they love and have a chance to develop and get to that next level, be a college pro, whatever it is, people don't get the chance to necessarily see their kid grow up. And so for us, it is a very special privilege to be able to help people kind of see their kids' biggest moments unfold before their very eyes, wherever in the world they happen to be. Um, and so it's definitely with this crazy line of work. It's definitely also been a test of my patience. It's been a test of my work ethic. There have been a lot of long drives and a lot of 1 a.m. finishes and 5 a.m. starts the next day. So definitely finding my limits of what I'm able to contribute to my craft and seeing the things that I truly value, both with the people that I work with and the product that I put forward. I think those have been some of the things I've learned about myself.
I'd probably kick myself if I didn't ask this because this is an experience that I've gone through as well. The Bochford Project. Now, you got a chance to do this past year, and I had a chance to do that at the start of 2023. Just quickly give me, your thoughts on what it was like going through that experience.
The Botchford Project is something I will never, ever forget. The ability to now be connected with all the incredible folks. And I mean, stands to reason you're one of them. Like, these are some incredible people that have been selected to be a part of the Botchford Project. And to have gone through that process, to be able to rub shoulders with the peak of hockey media in Vancouver, and to have them be rooting for you and helping to teach you along the way throughout that process, to go in and have a rough idea for the story that you want to tell, and to see that go from an idea to a reality that ends up published on NHL.com and everything in between, to talk to the players, to then create the original draft, and to then refine that into its final piece. The stories that you hear from people along the way and the lessons that you learn in your writing style and how you deal with kind of shifting that on the fly and finding a way to put your own spin and your own kind of take on a story that may have already been told in another way in the past, but really making it your own. It was unbelievable. I would recommend that to anybody in the media sphere, especially from the lower mainland and the Vancouver area, that want to kind of add a piece to their portfolio and just to be able to be a part of something that really helps them find out something about themselves and what they value in storytelling. It was I've said the word unbelievable so many times during our chat, but it was truly something special.
As you do take on a bigger role with the Express this year, what will this upcoming hockey season, or what will this upcoming season from September, let's say, till April look like for Ian?
I think this coming season, it's going to look a little bit the same, but a little bit different. I'll be on the road with the Express now this season, so I'll be calling all of their games home and on the road, which for us includes a couple of trips up to Prince George, a trip out to Alberta to see some of the new teams that have joined the BCHL this year. I'm still going to be working with the Richmond Sockeyes and the Chilliwack Jets. We'll see how things go with Delta, just with how much extra is going to be added into the schedule with the expanded role with Coquitlam. Still going to be working with the Arena Lacrosse League once their schedule comes out. We'll see how much of that I'm able to do. The JPHL, same thing. So it's going to be busy, would be the apt word to describe it all. But it's going to be a lot of miles again on the old Volkswagen Jetta. It's going to be a lot of incredible memories made working with incredible people such as yourself, Steve, Trickshot, Ryan Zaitsaw, For the Win Media, all the broadcasters in the BCHL, the crews at JPHL. I'm tickled pink. I'm beyond beside myself, man. I am so excited for what this next season is going to bring for myself, for you, for all the folks that we're working with. Unreal.
Now, Ian, I know that you and I have so much to talk about. We could sit here all day, but I think for our listeners, I'm sure they'll agree with us. We'll have to have you back on sometime soon. But my brother, I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining me for this chat today. I had a great time. I had an awesome time getting to talk to you about so many different things, and I can't wait to have you back on soon.
Thank you for having me, Jag. As soon as you had presented me with the opportunity, I was honored to get the chance to chat with you, brother. And I'm proud of the things that you're doing. Please do not stop. Continue pushing the boundaries and bringing yourself up, bringing your culture up, and having it be properly represented in all the things that you love and do. It is so inspiring for all the rest of us to see what you've accomplished and do. And like I said, this has been an incredible chat, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
We will do it again very soon. That is the multi-talented Ian Wilson who joined us on the Heart Podcast today. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you on the next one.